see all my kids are always attentive. But now we have a little extra time for the adults to catch on sometimes. So I'll say it again. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
All right, I am Principal Douglas Macklin. I am principal here of the wonderful school of CVAC, Chicago Vocational Career Academy. I want to take this time and opportunity to welcome you to our building. It is so good to see that the cafe is filled with eager faces to learn more about the college process and scholarships and availability to make sure that it's affordable for everybody in this community. This would not have happened if not for our wonderful state representative, Marcus Evans, 33rd District, right?
Yes.
Let's give him a round of applause. Young brother here supporting all of us and has been a constant supporter of the district, not only 33rd District, but our school in particular. He is the chairman of Labor and Commerce, so he's a big deal, right? So there's job creation. He also fights for criminal justice reform. I mean, everything that we need, he is our voice. And so, in addition to this, I know that many of our parents, we worry about how we're going to send our kids to school, right? So all that he does, he also added this to his plate to make sure that he could create a program that parents can be informed of how you can send your student to school and help you pay for it. Because that's the major thing that's a determinant of whether or not you get to go to school, right? Because you can get accepted. Our kids are talented. They can get accepted.
Yes.
But how are you going to pay for it? Right?
Yes.
So if you can join with me and give this young brother a warm reception.
The principal round of applause. It's a tough job. I think I'm good because I'm an only long. I always respect people who do jobs that I don't want to do. Police officer, teacher, correctional officer. You know, those are tough jobs dealing with our kids. Thank you, Principal Macklin, for what you do. You don't do anything by yourself, and like you already know that. When I was down in Springfield, I was talking to Senator Sim, and we were talking about I don't want a job. And I think that's the issue. We always talk about jobs in politics. I want a good job. It's like I don't want a car, I want a good car. I mean, our community, we want the best. You know, we want a good neighborhood, we want good housing, and the foundation that is accessing the skills to a good job or a good entrepreneurial opportunity. And the way to do that is education. We got one of the best universities in the world, not the country, in the world, in U of I. So I was partnering with my friend at U of I, who be you know, how can we get more people in my community, you know, to look at U of I as an option, or just have the correct strategies for education. I didn't attend U of I. A lot of my friends did, because I was in high school, my GPA wasn't high. I had a 2.5 GPA. I went to Chicago State University. And that was the best option for me. I worked, and I finished College University of Israel. That was my path, but I needed somebody to help me. It was, Marcus, this is not your path, but you have a path, and I'm a real estate appraiser as well as I'm your state representative for our area. So Marcus is going to be okay because I found a path. We just got to make sure our kids have a path. So my point of doing this is to, again, to make sure everybody leaves here with some information to give to the church, give your friends, your neighbors about their path of success. You know, you got people who, they can be 25 and dropped out. You go to community college, get a GED, you know, get a trade. It's something for everybody, not just to get a job, but a good job. I tell the story of my father. His criminal record was longer than Stony Island. And when he was looking to get his life together 4 years ago at the age of 48, we got a strategy. And when I work with my cousins who all had challenges, and I got a little brother who's 20, it's all about strategy. How do we get our people there? U of I has a great program to give away free money. Everybody say free? Free! U of I tuition is sky high. Okay? And it is what it is because it's a great university. The good universities are sky high. But we want our best to go there and the best that look like me from our community. So I really thank the representative of U of I for being here, and my friend Elder Sims, who will be up next, because he's another man that's passionate about not just getting us jobs, but what type of job? Good job. So thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's important that we come here to find out ways and pathways to be successful. And, you know, there's a saying that says, education is a great equalizer. We talk about our young people having opportunities. Our young people are talented. They're skilled, they're able, but we want them to be able to accept and go after what they want. And being able to do that is being able to afford a great college education. I was telling somebody earlier, I just paid off my student loans recently. Just in enough time to pay for it. But now I'll start paying them off for her. But that's the role of a parent. That's why we have so many parents here, and I see so many of you, and I'm so encouraged to see so many of you here because you want to give your children a better life than we had. And that's our responsibility. So I'm honored to be here. As Representative Evans talked about, we are constantly trying to figure out ways to give our young people opportunities. We are proudly giving away hundreds of thousands of dollars in scholarship money. So the Illinois Legislative Black Caucus gives away a scholarship annually. So if you go to my website, go to Representative Evans' website, and we promote these scholarships continuously. The scholarships are available. The application comes up early May. So if you go to my website right now, senatorlgsims.com, you'll find the applications. There's plenty of applications on that website. Turn that around because we want to give you access. We want to give you opportunities. We want to make sure that you have everything that you dream of. Now, the fact that you are here this morning, to all our young people, look at your parents and say thank you right now. If you have a parent right here now who's with you right now, say thank you. Because not everybody got up at 7:30 this morning or 8 o'clock this morning to get here to help you be successful. So you should thank them because you have a parent who is committed to making sure you have and you can go wherever your desire takes you. So we are going to make sure we bring Kevin up next because we have got some amazing universities in this state. But one thing I don't want to hear from anybody is that you are looking at out-of-state schools. We got some of the best colleges and universities right here in this state, in the country, in this state. One of which is the University of Illinois, which I am proud to be an alum. Proud to be an alum of the University of Illinois system because I understand and I understood the commitment of that university system to improving the quality of life for the people of this state. So with that, I'm going to bring Kevin up because he's going to tell you about free money.
Free.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So it's really great to be here. It's great to see you all here. First thing I want to do is thank Principal Macklin and the folks here at CVS. It's great. Appreciate you hosting this event. This is just wonderful to see you all here. Representative Evans, Senator Sims, their support for all of you, of course, but the university system in this state has been really, really invaluable. We really appreciate you being here and also giving me the opportunity to talk to you a little bit. I am from the University of Illinois, but I'm not here to sell the University of Illinois to you. I'm here to talk about college admissions and college affordability in general. So everything I'm going to tell you about is really applicable to all schools. If you choose not to come to Urbana-Champaign, that's fine with me. I want you all to find a school that is best for you. And when I say all of you, students out there, parents who care very much about how your kids are doing and what they're going to do, I want you to find the best place for you. So this is not in any way, shape, or form an effort to try to twist your arm to come to Urbana-Champaign. I hope a few of you do. But that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to talk about the process. And this is about providing information for you. So please ask questions along the way. Hold my feet to the fire. If you think I said something that didn't make any sense, stop me and we'll talk about it, okay? So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about, I've got just a few visuals, but mostly I'm going to talk and answer your questions. I want to talk a little bit about the admissions process, but I'm going to spend most of my time talking about financial aid and scholarships and grants and all of those kinds of things to help you understand a little bit about that. So these are some of the things. And then I will talk, toward the end, I'll talk a little bit about some of the programs we have at Illinois, but it's actually more to give you an idea, because a lot of schools have programs. We're by no means unique. Mostly it's more about giving you an idea of what kind of programs are out there. And I'm going to give you my opinions and some kind of advice along the way as well. So let me start with admissions. So, you guys see this in the paper a couple weeks ago? A couple of TV stars got in trouble, and a bunch of other people. So that made a lot of news. And I put this in here because I want you to know that this is not something you need to worry about. And the reason I say that is, this is a handful of people who broke the law. This is not the way college admissions works. Now, you know, they bribed some people, they lied, they cheated on tests, they did all kinds of things that are just flat out illegal. And yes, there are some people out there who break the law, we know that. But that's not what you need to worry about. These were just, one of the things is that this is really a sad case. The thing that bothers me is sometimes I see things in the paper and things like that say, oh, this shows that the college admission system is broken, you know, and we got to completely reform it. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But the answer to that is no. I'll tell you a little bit more about college admissions. But the point here is, these are some folks that broke the law, full stop. And there are people out there who do that, but that's not the issue. So don't get hung up on that. It's kind of an interesting story, but that's not the main issue. Let me tell you a little bit more about the college admissions process. And I'll talk a little bit about the mechanics and a little bit about some advice, okay? As I was talking to some students this morning, some of you said that you're not sure exactly what you want to do. You might be interested in psychology, you might be interested in criminology, you might be interested in engineering or computers. That's great, that's no problem. We understand, and I mean all the schools understand, that not every 16 or 17 or 18-year-old knows exactly what they want to do with their lives. I'm a little bit older than that, and I'm not sure what I want to do with my life either. Okay? So you don't have to know. You don't have to have decided, and the decision you make, whether it's going what school to pick or what major to pick, it's never a final decision. There are always opportunities. Okay? So when it comes to the admissions process, applications are available online. Nobody takes a paper application anymore. Okay? One of the pieces of advice I have for you is to pay close attention to the deadlines. If there are schools that you're interested in applying to, go online, go on the web, and look for application deadlines. Rule of thumb is, earlier is better. So, for example, I'll use Illinois as an example several times today. Again, it's because it's what I know. We have 2 application deadlines. So, for example, for students who are juniors right now, who might want to apply next fall during their senior year, the first deadline is November 1st. The second deadline is January, I can't remember if it's January 3rd or 4th, but it's right after the new year. Now, we consider every application that is submitted. My advice would be to apply in the early stage. Set aside some time, because you can't, if you want to make a deadline, you can't do it the night before. These applications take time. They ask for written statements. Not only do you want to write it, you want to put some thoughts into what you're writing, you want somebody else to read it and review it, make sure they catch the typos, make sure your thoughts are getting out there. And so set aside some time. If the application deadline is December 15th, you can't start working on your application on December 14th, okay, or 13th. Give yourself some time. Give yourself some time. Most schools charge you to apply. I think we're $50 at Illinois. But every school offers, and this is important, every school offers application fee waivers. They will waive the application fee. One way that they will almost always automatically do it, and again we do this at Illinois, if you qualify for free or reduced lunch, we automatically waive your application fee. But that's not the only way. So you can ask for an application fee waiver. Nowadays, there are students who are applying to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 schools. Maybe you're not sure where you want to go, you're not sure, maybe you don't know if you're going to get in, right? So you want to apply, kind of spread out a little bit. $50, $60, $75 each. 8, 9, 10 applications. Fee waivers make a huge difference. All of a sudden, if they're all no charge, then 8, 6, 7, 8 applications is something you can do. So you can always ask for a fee waiver, okay? And that's a piece of advice I would give you right now. if we think anybody, if we believe that anybody is not going to apply because of the application fee, and it's a burden, I'll say it that way, okay? Because there are folks out there who can pay these application fees, right? If it's a burden, we'll waive that fee. So that's something to keep in mind, okay? And again, that matters a lot when you're applying to a lot of schools. Make sure your information is accurate, because this is going to be reviewed by several people, and inaccurate information almost exclusively works against you. These essays matter. Don't write what you think they want to hear. If I read an essay from somebody who says, ever since I was 3 years old, I wanted to study physics with Professor Kevin Pitts at the University of Illinois because I know he's left-handed. Right? They're trying to tell me what they think I want to hear. Tell about yourself, about your own experiences. Authenticity is the most important thing. Being authentic is the most important thing. Talking about yourself, talking about how you got to where you are, and then where you think you want to go. That's what matters the most. And those essays absolutely matter. One of the things sometimes folks imagine is that you take an SAT test or you take an ACT test. Folks here now take SAT. It used to be, a few years ago, it used to be ACT, but now it's SAT. And then what happens is we say, you know, a school like Illinois would say, everybody with a score above 1100 gets in and everybody with a score below 1100 is out. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. We look at your SAT score, but that is by far a small piece of how we make application decisions. We do what's called holistic application review. We're looking at everything. We're looking at your high school experience. We're looking at what courses that you've taken. We're looking at what opportunities you've had and what you've done with those opportunities. We're really trying to make sure the playing field is as level as possible. Okay? There are some kids who are going to schools that, you know, may offer lots of advanced placement credit. There are kids going to school, and I'm sorry, young folks, I have to say kids now because I have gray hair, and I have a daughter who's 16, so I call you kids. I don't mean that to make me somehow that you're immature. You're just young, okay? And you've got your whole life ahead of you. But there are kids out there who have lots and lots of opportunity for AP, and that's great, more power to them. But there are students who are at schools that don't have a lot of AP. We're not going to count that against them, okay? So I just want to make that clear that we're going to look at the whole student and the whole experience. And don't hesitate to ask questions. This is one of the most important messages I can give you today about admissions, applications, or financial aid. And that is, feel free, if you have any questions at all, to contact whatever school it is you're interested in applying to. Whether it's a question about the application, about the deadline, about the information, about majors, about financial aid. I'm not sure what this form means. I'm not sure if I have to fill it out or not. There are people there who their job is to answer the phone and answer your questions. And that's what they're there for. And the best advice I can give you is if you have any questions along the way, reach out to these schools. The sheet of paper that I had out front for my presentation, do you mind if we hold that up? Just that one. And I know there are more copies out there. The main reason I gave you, it's just one sheet of paper with 2 on the front, 2 on the back. The main reason I gave you this is on the back, there's University of Illinois Office of Student Financial Aid phone number and email address. If you have any questions about financial aid at all, thank you, reach out to them and they will help you and they'll answer your questions. And sometimes, you know, when you're trying to fill out the forms and you say, you know, I'm living with my grandmother, you know, special situations, they'll help you with that. All schools have folks who will help you out. And the most important thing I can say is reach out. Don't just guess or don't just hope. Reach out and ask them and they will help you. That's what they're there for. It's one of the most important messages I can give you today. So ask questions. I think I said this, but I did want to go back. This goes back to that admissions scandal. This is what we do at Illinois, and this is not uncommon. We do not allow any interference in the application process. No external interference. If you're a big donor, if we've got any $1 million donors out there in the audience, that does not give your child any advantage. In fact, we make sure that the people reviewing the applications don't know that stuff. If your parent, if your mom or dad went to school at Illinois, we don't take that into account. We're looking at the things I told you earlier. We're looking at high school performance, we're looking at opportunity, we're looking at the essay, We don't take any letters of recommendation, none of that stuff, because we want it to be fair and based on merit, okay? And we don't use only the SAT score. Sometimes people think that. This is just a little bit about the folks who came to Illinois last fall. Okay, so we got about 40,000 applications. We're a big school. We got about 40,000 applications. More than half of those students were admitted. We admit about 2 out of 3 students that apply. So if you apply to Illinois, you got a pretty good chance of getting in. No guarantees, of course, but a pretty good chance of getting in. We had almost 6,000 Illinois students come to Urbana-Champaign as freshmen last fall. And so we're a big school. We have a lot of students, and we review every one of those applications one by one. Anybody got any questions so far?
I wanted to confirm that freshmen are not able to bring their car to school. Is that true?
So, the question was, can freshmen bring their car? So I believe actually you can, but it has to be like your remote park, your remote parking, I think that's the way it is. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I think like you got to park at leave it at the stadium basically, which means probably what you'd have to do if you want to go drive or something, you got to take the bus out to get your car. Question here.
So you were saying that the application is online. You have I think the essay questions are also online. So the essay questions that are online now, the same ones that are going to be in the fall. So yeah. Like the students start writing their essay questions.
Yes, absolutely. So the essay questions are we don't change. Those don't change. I mean they might change once every 10 years or something like that. These are questions about the kind of question is tell us about your experiences and what you want to do in the future. So they're not like quiz questions or anything. They're about you. And so yes, you could actually work on that. And of course, different schools might have slightly different application questions, but you could recycle a lot of that information if you're going to apply to more than one place. The one other thing I will say is that there are applications out there that are shared among schools. There's an application called the Common App, which a lot of schools use. So you submit information to the Common App, and then you tell it which schools to send the application to, for example. We use another one, it's called the Coalition App, but the point is that sometimes that information actually can be used for more than one school. Yes, please. Yeah. Yeah, so we have in school, all school students called we have a Disability Resource Education Center, and we're working with students ranging from students that are in wheelchairs to students who may have limited sight, hearing, learning challenges, attention deficit, all those things. Absolutely, and we make accommodations for students in those cases. We have literally thousands of students on our campus who are taking advantage of that. And most schools, that's a great question to ask. Most schools have dedicated offices to take care of that. Yes. Yes. So the question was, if you have information like that, maybe it's a learning disability or something like that, where would you state that on the application? So that would be part of the written statement, because we don't have, by law, we can't ask those kinds of questions, right? But you want to share that information, I completely appreciate. So that should be part of the written statement to say, here's a challenge, and of course this is the student's words, even though maybe mom or dad's helping a little bit. Here's a challenge that I have faced, but here's how I've dealt with it, and here's how it's affected me. And that's a great way to help the admissions reviewers think about how you've dealt with that, how you've dealt with those issues. Now, once you come to campus, going to a place like our Disability Resources Center and working with counselors there, they'll help you set up an education plan. They'll give you a letter, for example, if you need extra time on exams, things like that. If you need a low
stimulation environment, those kinds of things. They'll work with you. So the actual details, in other words, that doesn't come with the application, the details of how it will work out. That would be once you attended. Yeah. Yes, yes. So if your child plays sports, I recommend you contact the coaches. So one of the things that was funny about this admission scandal was you had students who had never played a sport in their life and they were trying to get in as an athlete. There was one where they photoshopped the girl's head onto the water polo player. So one of the things we do is if a student is applying as an athlete, one of the things we do is we reach out to 2 coaches, and we've always done this. We reach out to 2 coaches to verify that the student is an athlete. And so making the coach aware is a valuable thing to do, for sure. Absolutely. Is there a question over? Yes, please.
Could you speak a little bit more to, you called it an approach, so I think it's a balanced approach, where you look at the courses, the grades, kids' opportunities in the SATs. Can you drill down a little deeper into, because grades are grades, and an SAT score is an SAT score. But can you talk specifically about what reviewers are looking for in terms of what opportunities teams are taking advantage of? What's that thing that makes you go, that's the kid we want in our school?
Yeah, so the question, just so folks can hear that, was a little bit more about this, what we refer to as holistic, and we use the term holistic because we want to think that we're trying to look at the whole student. That's what we're trying to look at. And the reason I say it that way is because I want to make it really clear to folks that we don't just look at one thing. So imagine that, maybe your grades weren't so great, in some courses, or maybe you had a life event that affected, one semester or something like that. We want to know about that because we don't want to penalize you because spring semester of your sophomore year, your grades weren't really good because something bad happened in your family. We want to know about that. So so part of my answer is there's not one thing for exactly the reason that we're trying to look at everything. But one of the important things I want to say is that we're trying to look at kind of achievement and motivation and potential relative to opportunity, because we know that not every student has exactly the same opportunity coming in, and so that's why we don't want to just have the same bar for everybody, because we want students. What's the most important question we are asking ourselves when we review applications? We're asking the question, can this student be successful at the University of Illinois? That's the question we're asking ourselves, and of course, you don't have to be Albert Einstein to be successful at the University of Illinois. You got to be willing to work hard, because it's not easy. It's in college. College is, takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of effort. And I know there are some of you out there that don't have to put a huge amount of effort into high school and do just fine. And that's not the way it is in college. So we're looking at, that's the most important question we're trying to answer. Can the student come to the University of Illinois and be successful? And if we believe the answer to that is yes, we're going to admit that student. Anything else on it? Feel free later, but I'm going to switch over and start talking about money.
Well, yeah.
And I see some heads going, what took you so long? Please. Contact information? For me? Yeah, sure. Yeah. I'll put that up at the end, okay? And folks, feel free, I'll put my contact information up at the end. Feel free to contact me. In most cases, what I will do is direct you to somebody who can help you, because I'll be the intermediary, but that's good, completely fine. Let's talk money. Who doesn't like to talk money? Message number one, you already knew. College is expensive. It absolutely is expensive. There's no doubt about that. Message number two, you might not have known, there is a lot of money out there to help you attend college and be successful and graduate, maybe with some debt, but not with a crushing amount of debt. And thanks to our representatives who are here today and supporting this event, students in the state of Illinois, on average, graduate from college with less debt than students across the country. And the reason for that is because the state of Illinois provides more funding to support college than most states do. That's a good thing. And And schools add money to that as well, and so does the federal government. So the point is there's money. It's expensive, no doubt about it, but there's money. And there are a lot of people who can help. This is the information that I have on that one-page handout. These folks can answer every question you have about financial aid and scholarships. They're incredibly helpful. If you have specific questions, if any of you want to contact me, I'll put my information up later. You're welcome to contact me. But if it has to do with a detailed financial aid question, I'm going to kick it to them because they're the experts. Okay? The other thing I'll say is, I want to say one more thing about, college is expensive. There's a lot of money to help. No doubt about that. But the other thing I want to say is, college is probably the best investment you can make in your life. So if you think about an investment, what's an investment? An investment is when you put money into something, hoping that you'll get more money back later. That's an investment, okay? An investment in college, in terms of career earnings, how much money you will earn over your career, is worth about $1 million on average. A college degree, compared to a high school degree, is worth $1 million in career earnings. Okay? So yes, college is expensive, but it doesn't cost $1 million. It's a great investment. So what we want to do is we want to find ways to help students make that investment so that they can benefit the entire rest of their lives. How in the world can it be $1 million? You're in the workforce for about 50 years, roughly, until you retire. About 50 years, about $20,000 extra a year with a college degree compared to not a college degree. $20,000 a year times 50 years is $1 million. Now, some actually do much better than that. Some do a little worse. There's no doubt about that. That's an average number. But the point is, probably the best investment you can make in your life is to attend college and earn a college degree. And that's what we're in the business of doing, is not only helping you attend, but also helping you succeed. So I want to talk a little bit more in detail about how college financing and costs work. And what I want to show you here is a table of what's called cost of attendance. Every school provides this by law. We have to. Okay? And so I want to walk through this so you understand what I'm talking about here. So this is an example from Illinois. I'm going to show you in just a second. I'll show you an example for Northwestern University. It's another Big Ten school, but it's quite a bit different. Hey. Yeah, hang on. All right. Okay. Here's the Illinois number. Okay? Uh-oh.
Wow.
It's hard to see. But it's a big number. But I want to explain this to you. I want to explain this to you because that's not that is if you go to Northwestern, that is not the price that you will pay. I promise you. You will not pay $75,000. I promise you. So I want to explain this to you. First of all, every school has this. If you go to a web page for any school, UIC, Northwestern, University of Alabama, every school by law has this. It's called total cost of attendance. And the school has to list the cost. So this is for Urbana-Champaign, okay? Now, we actually have 2 tuition rates. Actually, we have more than 2, but I put 2 up there to show you. Students who go into engineering at Urbana pay more, paying for labs and computers and things like that. Many of the other programs, this is what we call our base rate tuition. So I've just given you 2 columns, but you can just look at one of them. It's fine. That's the cost. I'll get out of the way here. That's the tuition cost. So you heard tuition. Think of tuition as the cost of college, right? Okay, well, it's one of the costs of college. It's not everything. All right, so that's the tuition cost for Urbana-Champaign. The next thing are the fees. Now, fees are a bunch of different costs. One of them helps with maintenance of facilities. One of them is a fee to get a bus pass, so you can ride the bus all around town. One of them is for your health insurance. So there's a lot of different fees. But that's another cost. For us, it's about $4,000 a year, but that includes healthcare. Okay? The next one's room and board. If you go to school at some place that's far enough from home where you have to move there, you got to pay for basically rent and food. Okay? So for us, this would be the cost of a dorm room and a meal plan for the whole year. Okay? And then there's books and supplies. You have to buy books. You may have to get some online materials. You may have to buy some other supplies. These are estimated values, right? It may change depending on what courses you take. Other expenses might be some things that you need. You'll try to fold in some money to travel home, things like that. So we're trying to get the whole cost. That's what we're trying to do here. And so we sum this up, and if you're in one of our base rate programs, if you're in economics, for example, or maybe you're studying Spanish, or maybe you want to be in education, you want to be a teacher, then your total cost of attendance for 1 year is $31,012. If you go into science or engineering, it's $36,016. The only difference, though, is that tuition line. Okay? So when I say college is expensive, that's 1 year. College takes 4 years. So you're talking about $120,000, $150,000 for 4 full years. Now this is before any financial aid, but I wanted to show that to you. And then we'll talk about how we actually knock that down. Okay? But this is what we would call the sticker price, right? This is before we negotiate. And the point there, the reason I show Northwestern is just to give you what a different school looks like. So this is the same for Northwestern. Tuition, $54,000. Room and board, $16,600. Fees, schools price differently. Look, their tuition's much higher than Urbana-Champaign. But their fees are much lower. But the total cost for them is $76,000. Okay? Now, again, and I'll talk more about the financial aid side. If you go to Northwestern, you're not going to pay $76,000 a year. They have lots and lots of financial aid. So do we. But the point is, that's the cost of attendance for different schools, and you can look that up for any school. Now let me start talking a little bit about the aid, because that's what's going to bring that number down to something that's more manageable. Okay? We talk about scholarships, and sometimes we use the word scholarship to kind of blanketly explain all types of money that you might get. But there are actually different types of money, and I want to be clear on this, because a lot of the money you get, you don't have to pay back, and of course that's very good. Some of the money you get, you got to pay back later, and so you got to know what the difference is. Are you getting loans that you're going to have to repay, or are you getting grants and support that you don't have to repay? So grants are the type of money that doesn't have to be repaid. These grants are based on financial need only. So what happens is, you submit an application. Whether it's to Urbana-Champaign, or to University of Missouri, or Chicago State. You supply an application. You also fill out what's called the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, FAFSA, F-A-F-S-A. It's an online form. It's a federal government form. We all use the same form. You only got to do it once a year. But the point is, you don't have to do it 10 times for 10 schools. You fill out the FAFSA form. This is the way that we assess how much need that you have. What happens is the federal government has a bunch of tables, kind of like the way they do taxes. They have a bunch of tables, and based on how much your family income is, how many children you have in the family, all those kinds of things, the federal government figures out what your estimated family contribution is to college. That's how much money they think you can pay for college, and then our job is to try to make up the difference. Okay, so imagine, I told you earlier, total cost of attendance for Urbana-Champaign is let me round it off, $31,000. Imagine that your estimated family contribution is $4,000. The federal government says your family is able to pay $4,000. Then we're trying to come up with $27,000 to make up the difference so you can come to school there. And what we want is as much of that money as possible to be in the form of scholarships and grants so you don't have to pay them back. But probably a little bit of that's going to be in loans. Okay? So the first piece, though, these grants are totally need-based. It doesn't matter if your GPA is 2.6 or 4.0. All they look at is your estimated family contribution, which is based on your family income, number of children, all of those things. We call that need-based aid. Nothing to do with merit yet. Merit's coming. Okay, that's the merit scholarships. Okay, these scholarships is the next form. So grants was the first kind. Scholarships are next, and that's what we usually talk about. They do not need to be repaid, so that's good news. Some scholarships are based on need, some are based on merit, some are a mixture. Okay? And in fact, we have all of those, and most schools do. So it may be a scholarship that can go to anybody who's super high achieving. That would be a merit scholarship. It may be a scholarship that is really based on the same as the grant, which is just your need. Or, like I said, some of them are a mixture. Okay? But those scholarships are still money that you receive to help pay for school that you don't have to pay back. Okay? At University of Illinois, just to give you a sense of it, I think I may have this later in my talk. We put about $120 million a year into grants and scholarships. It's a lot of money, but we have a lot of students. About 2/3 of that money, so about $80 million of that money, goes toward need. That means that the majority of the money we are using to help students attend school is based exclusively on family income and estimated family contribution to college. Now we're putting another $40 million that's into merit or a mixture of merit and need, but the majority of the money we're putting in is for need. Okay? And so the important message there is you say, oh, well, you know, I know a lot of students have better grades than I do or had a higher SAT score than I did, so I can't get these merit scholarships. Well, that's not the only part of it. There's a big part of it that's need-based, and so it's really important. And what you need to do to get the need-based money is fill out that FAFSA form. So that's a very, very important thing to do. Federal Pell Grants, State of Illinois MAP Grant, Monetary Assistance Program, that the gentleman over here helped fund, those things are based off of that FAFSA form. And we are so thrilled that they're going to increase the amount of money allocated to MAP next year. Because it really is important. And it's great. No, the state of Illinois is incredibly supportive of students. The MAP program for the state is better than most other states. The average student, I said this a second ago, I just want to say it again because I think it's really important. The average student in the state of Illinois graduates with less debt than the average student nationally, and that's because the MAP program is so good. That's absolutely true. There are, of course, other sources of scholarships. So some of these scholarships come from the institution. I was just talking about the money that we award from Illinois, but in fact there's money from other places. There may be money from local clubs. There may be opportunities through, for example, Legislative Black Caucus, for example. There are other sources of money. A lot of the money that comes from the university, you're eligible for it when you apply, just by submitting an application. But for some of the other money, you may have to submit an application to someone else. Yes?
So does the time that you submit the application make a difference? Like, for example, you said that there are 2 admission deadlines, and one was the first one in January. So if you submit the application November 1st, is it more likely that you would get a scholarship from the university?
So the question was about the timing of when you submit your application, because earlier I'd said earlier is better on your application. So the timing of when you submit your application, you're reviewed equally no matter what. So if you get it in, late is definitely better than never, because you still get a fair shot, and we evaluate the same for scholarships. Part of the reason I say to get it in early is because on the financial aid side, for example, state money, at some point when there are lots of students who are applying for state money, the state runs out. And that is a first come, first serve thing, so earlier is better. Okay, so that's why I say, you don't have to get your applications in on day one, but don't let them drag out. The way I say it with financial aid form, the FAFSA form, is get it in by basically the end of December, and you're going to be fine.
Is the FAFSA deadline?
There is no formal deadline for FAFSA. What I'm telling you is, if you get it in by, say, the end of December, then you're not going to miss out on any money. That's what I'm saying. If it turns out you get it in the middle of January, it's probably fine. I'm just saying earlier is better because you're not missing.
April, when you still doing your FAFSA.
April's getting late. April's getting late. Yes.
What about the $61,000?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you about that in just a minute. The $61,000 program that we have in Illinois, I'll tell you about that in just a few minutes. Yeah, thank you. So I mentioned that there are many sources for scholarship money. Here's a couple of websites that you can go to that try to list as many of the scholarships as possible. And the thing that's really interesting about these scholarships is that some of them are wide open. A lot of people are going to apply. Some of them can be pretty narrow. In other words, there may only be a handful of people who are even eligible for these scholarships. You know, there may be some scholarship that is looking for students interested in art and design from, you know, some school or something like that. So there are some that are more narrow. So it really pays to go look at these. And these are just kind of aggregator websites. So these are websites that will list lots of scholarships, and you can do searches. So you can look at schools, you can look at areas, that kind of thing. Okay? I told you at Illinois we give $120 million ourselves to help students come to school. Our students also brought in $12 million in outside scholarships as well. So these are big dollar amounts, but they're big dollar amounts because it's lots of students. There's student employment. A lot of folks work. A lot of folks work when they're in school. Of course, you can get a job in the community. There's also something that is known as work study, which is that you actually usually work on campus, and the federal government actually helps pay you. So there are all kinds of jobs on campus. Think about a campus like Urbana-Champaign. We have 45,000 students. It's a small city. It's not a Chicago city. That's a big city. It's a small city, but it takes a lot of people to make a city work. And so we need a lot of folks to work on things like work in the library, work in food services, all kinds of things like that. And you can get paid to work through work study. Okay? And of course, there are also off-campus jobs as well. And then there are the loans. The loans are the things that have to be repaid after graduation. We want to keep your loan debt as low as we can, but we can't always keep it at zero. The average student who takes out a loan at the University of Illinois will graduate from college with $26,000 in loan debt. Now, $26,000 is a lot of money to pay off in loans. On one hand, I don't dispute that at all. On the other hand, as I told you earlier, a college degree is worth $1 million extra. So it's still a good investment. We want to minimize those loans, but sometimes, you know, you got to take them because it's worth it. And the types of loans will depend on your need. So the federal government subsidizes loans, which means you don't have to repay any of the loan money until after you graduate. And you're not charged interest on those loans until after you graduate. That's what we call subsidized federal loans. And those are the ones we like because you're not being, in some sense, penalized for those. There are also loans that parents can take out that are also subsidized in that way. It's called the Parent Plus loan. The federal government is helping to subsidize that. So those loans are an important part of this. What we don't want is you having to take out loans to pay most of this money. Because now you're talking about $100,000 of debt when you graduate, $120,000 of debt. That's bad news, and that's what we're working very hard to avoid. This is just a picture to show you how much money we've been putting into student aid on our campus. I told you it's $120 million. It's actually continuing to go up, but it's gone up a lot. Part of the reason it's gone up a lot is because the cost of college has gone up too. So, but the point here is there's a lot of money out there. I'm throwing out some big numbers. $120 million is a big number, but the cost is a lot. Okay. So what's the process here? I mentioned earlier this FAFSA form. Submit your application. Like we were talking about earlier, you might apply to several schools. Don't forget to ask for the fee waiver. Don't forget the fee waiver. Academic record, they'll ask you about your grades. They'll ask you about your SAT score. They'll ask you for your written statement. They'll ask you what major you're interested in, that kind of stuff. Be as honest as you can. Give them the best picture of yourself that you can give them. That's the best advice I can give you on the application side. Then the other thing we were just talking about, submit your FAFSA form. Free application for federal student aid. This is available on the web if you want to go look at it today. You can see what the form looks like. The way it works is it tries to pull in your parents' tax returns from last year and use that money. Use those entries from that tax return, and that helps a lot. But sometimes things come up because you have a unique case, and that's when you need to reach out to the folks in the financial aid office, and they'll help answer your questions. Okay? But this is really important. This form is the one that unlocks all of the need-based aid. All of the aid that is based on your family income and what your estimated family contribution to college is, all of that comes off of this form. So it's really important. And as I said earlier, the sooner you fill it out, the better. But I mean, it doesn't have to be too soon. But by the end of the year, January, something like that, that's okay. Okay? But don't wait till April, May, June, because now we're starting to get into situations where folks may be running out of money. You might just be losing money because you're late. We don't want that. We don't want you to lose out on money because you're late. That's why these things matter. Okay? Questions about that? Yes.
On the exception fee, do they waive those?
The student fees is part of the cost of attendance, I'm saying, or for the application?
Acceptance fee.
Oh.
Once you accept the offer at the school, there's a fee, is that waived?
It's the acceptance fee. So usually so what happens is you apply. Questions about acceptance fee. So usually what happens is you apply, probably you're applying in November, December, January is when you're submitting your applications. And then maybe sometime in February or March you're getting, I used to say a letter, but nobody sends out a letter anymore. It's usually you got to go online to check it. But you say, congratulations, you have been admitted to the University of Illinois, or you have been admitted to University of Wisconsin, whatever it is. And then it says, to accept your offer of admission, you have until May 1st. So that offer is good until May 1st, and you can wait, you want to wait and hear from other schools, right? You want to hear about how much money you're going to get, all of that stuff, absolutely. But everybody in the country, every school in the country has agreed that the deadline to accept your offer of admission is May 1st. So that's a date that's common for everybody. So no school is going to come to you and say, you are offered admission to such and such a university, but you have to decide by next Tuesday. Doesn't work that way. Everybody gives you the May 1st deadline. Now, once you know where you want to go and what you want to do, you go and you click I accept. To complete that acceptance, they will ask you for a fee, like $100 or something like that. It can be waived, but not like application fees. It's less likely to get the acceptance waived. That's less likely. You can make the request. That request is probably going to be denied. And part of the reason for that, just so you understand, I don't want to, I'm not defending it or something, all this stuff's expensive. Part of the reason for that is, if you don't have to pay to accept, then it's pretty easy to click I accept and not show up. And then it's really tough on us because we're trying to plan for how we get 7,000 students in, and then if a bunch of them don't show. So it's almost like holding your seat. That's why it's harder to get that one waived. Yes? So the question was, if you are in school and your child is in school, how does that work? As far as I understand, I have to admit I don't know the details here, but as far as I understand, each student is considered individually. However, they are considered as part of the family. So, in other words, a parent in school and a child in school would be very similar to the case of parents having two children in college at the same time. Maybe you have two kids that are a year apart and they're both in college, so it would be treated the same way. So it's not a financial aid allocation per family where you have to pick and choose. It's an allocation per student. Yeah.
The FAFSA form, is that filled out once or every year?
The FAFSA form is filled out once a year, but that one version is then available to every school. So, for example, if a student applies to 8 schools, once you filled it out once, it goes to all 8 places. But you do have to update it each year. Mostly what they're looking for there is if somehow your financial situation changed by a lot. That's what they're really checking for. So the first year is the important one. because that's where a lot of the scholarships and aids get identified. But if somebody all of a sudden in the second year is making $400,000 a year, then we're probably not going to give them the need-based aid anymore. But so it does have to be updated. Other questions? Yes?
Are any of the scholarship monies need to be applied to summer courses?
The question is, can the scholarship money be applied to summer courses? So that's a really great question, and it is a case-by-case thing on the scholarship. You have to look at what the details are of the scholarship award. In many cases, the answer is yes. The need-based aid is primarily for fall and spring. So if you get a State of Illinois MAP grant, you can't use that for the summer. But if you get a merit-based scholarship, you may well be able to. So it's a case-by-case, and you have to look at this. And this is a place where, I was talking earlier, I keep telling you over and over, reach out to financial aid. I give you the phone number for our financial aid office, but every school has one. So, if you're working with College of DuPage, or I keep trying to think of different schools to use as examples. Wilbur Wright, call them, and they will help you make sure. They'll say, oh, okay, you have these 2 awards. Here's how you can get the most bang. They'll help you make sure you can spend that money so you don't lose it. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so when a student is a freshman, I know their financial aid information is based on their parents. But what about the other sophomore year? They go to college.
Yeah. Excellent question. So your financial aid as a freshman is basically based off of your parents' financial information. That continues to be true until the student turns 24. I'm only the messenger on this one, okay? That's the federal government. Yeah, so basically, a student's financial aid or financial need, the parents have to fill out the FAFSA form until the student turns 24, and then they're independent. Okay, then they're independent. So it's your parents' income until you're 24. Now, I think the other.
Unless that student works.
Pardon me?
Unless that student works and file income tax themselves.
Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, that's right. So it's family income. So if a student, student's earning money, usually a student's earning a relatively small, a few $1,000s. But yeah, but the point is they don't become independent. They don't get to not count their parents' income until they turn 24. That was my point. Thank you, Bill. Okay, so yeah. So let me go back to cost of attendance, because this is a really good question. The question was about room and board. Let me go back to cost of attendance. I just want to remind you about this. So we'll just look at this column again, okay? Yeah, most scholarships or grants, aid that you would receive, Pell Grant, MAP Grant, if you win a scholarship, we have what is called President's Award Program. That is a merit-based scholarship that is targeted for underrepresented students. If you win the President's Award Program, that money can be applied to any of these things. Okay? That money can be applied to any of these things. What we usually do is we start here and we go money applied to tuition, money applied to fees. Once that's covered, then next we go to room and board. And again, this is the federal government. Here's the rule. You cannot get rich by going to college. And what I mean by that is the total sum of all of your awards, need-based aid, MAP grants, Pell grants, scholarships you win for outstanding merit, all of those things, the total cannot go past this number. So you cannot win $40,000 in scholarships and pocket $9,000. Okay? That's against the law. If you win $40,000 in scholarships, you don't get the last $9,000. Okay? But the money that you do get can be applied to any of this. All right? So of course you can reduce the cost in some ways. Again, and these numbers are very solid numbers because it's how much the university charges. We've done estimates here for room and board, books and supplies. I talk to my students. We're looking at ways to keep their book costs down. Sometimes a book that's available in the bookstore for $80, you can get used on Amazon for $25. So there are ways to get those numbers down a little bit. Students might, if you live in an apartment off campus with 4 or 5 other people, you can share a cost, you can get room and board down a little bit. But the point here is, when you get this award money, it can be used to anything to help you get to college. And this will be important in a minute when I talk about the 61,000 program. Because 61,000 covers part of it, and if you get other scholarships, it can help cover the rest. And I'll get to that.
So what are the 2,500 other expenses? What is that?
$2,500 for other expenses, we try to allow for, because they want us to allow for all the things that might be costs. So this is meant to be kind of everything you can think of. So one good example of what fits in there is travel home. So we assume a student is going to travel home a few times a year, and so that's a few $100s. And of course, it depends. If you're not very far, and it's a car ride, it's probably less than that. But if you're further, it's a plane ride. So other expenses may be things like travel home. There may be other incidental expenses, maybe things that are just related to living in the community, things like that. So it's meant to be an estimate. You are not required to set aside $2,500 for these other expenses. This is just an estimate to try to give you a sense. The government wanted us to be as upfront and honest, not just us, every school, to be as upfront and honest as what the total cost is to best we can estimate. You may not be anywhere near $2,500 in other expenses, but that's the way we made the estimate.
So does that come in the form of a disbursement then, or?
It would, yes, it would. You would get, so in other words, this money, so for example, imagine that you got, great job, between all of your grants and scholarships and everything, you got this, okay? What would happen is, some of that money would just go straight to pay these bills. You wouldn't even see the money. It would never come to you. It would just go straight to pay those bills. This one would go straight, for example, to university housing, or if you were living off campus, it would come to you and you'd have to use it to pay your rent. This one would come to you basically in the form of a check. And of course, nobody's going to say, did you spend that money on other expenses? What they're saying is that's the limit to the amount of that. Other questions? Is this helpful? Yes. Okay, good. Okay.
This is per year.
Because if it wasn't helpful, I was going to start telling jokes. This is per year. That's right. This is the cost for 1 year. And I hope the message you're taking away is, this is a big number, absolutely. The Northwestern number is even bigger, but that's not what you're going to pay. Okay? Northwestern, I've been telling you a lot about Illinois because it's what I know. Northwestern has a boatload of financial aid. The only people paying $75,000 a year to go to Northwestern are the people who can pay $75,000 a year to go to Northwestern, if you know what I mean. I'm just being honest about that. Everybody else, my recollection is, and I don't remember this exactly, but if your family income, parents' income, is below something like $120,000 or $130,000 a year, which is already pretty high, then you're going to get a bunch of money to go to Northwestern. So the point is, these are big numbers, but don't let these numbers scare you off, because the real cost that you're going to pay is going to be a lot less. Okay? That's really the most important message. And I'm not here to try to scare you. I'm trying to help you understand what these numbers mean, because you'll have numbers like this for every school. Because this is the way we're supposed to break it down. Other questions? I do want to say a few words about the Illinois program. Part of it's because I'm really excited about it, and part of it's because it's also an example of programs that other schools have programs that are kind of like this. They may not be exactly like ours, but I want to tell you about this one. We just started this program. This is the first year for it. The students who are coming in August will be the first students under this program. Here's what we say. Tuition and fees, remember those lines? I'll go back to the table in just a second. The Illinois commitment will cover tuition and fees for students with family income below $61,000 per year. So if your family income is less than $61,000, we will cover tuition and fees. What that means is, now when I say we will cover, what that means is your federal Pell Grant plus your state of Illinois MAP grant plus money from the university will cover tuition and fees. Okay? Now, that's not the whole story. For those of you who like to think about marketing and advertising, we try to make, you know how you do the simple version, right? That's not the whole story. So here's the thing. If your family income is very far below 61, say it's 40, 45, something like that, you're going to get more than this, okay? This is the minimum anybody gets below 61. If your income is further below that, you're going to get more. So that's not everything. And if your income is a little bit above 61, it's not like you're getting zero, okay? But those are details.
Sir?
Yes? It does not include room and board. I'll show you that in just a second. Tuition and fees only. Yes. Let me show you that. So, and remember, there are details. So, and I want to explain this to you. I'm trying to be as honest as I can about this. If you go on the web page and you look, and here's what you'll see it says. Family income is $61,000 and below. Less than $50,000 in assets. Let me explain that to you. Your primary house doesn't count. So that doesn't count against the assets. The reason we have that there is there are some folks out there who are rather good at hiding their wealth. So imagine somebody on paper has an income of $22,000 a year, but they own 9 properties. Okay? They're probably able to pay for college. So the reason that second line is there, less than $50,000 in assets, is to try to keep people from gaming the system. Your primary house, the house you live in, doesn't count. So you would have to have $50,000 in like other property, like a second house or third house or whatever. That's what that means. Okay, I just want to make sure you're clear on that. So that's what I told you. Health plus math plus Illinois commitment covers tuition and fees. So let me show you this. I'm going to go back to that table now. This is a table I showed you before. So Illinois commitment would cover tuition and fees. So it covers, out of the 31, it covers about 16,000. Now that's a lot, but obviously it's not all of it, okay? There's no doubt about that. And that's what I meant when I said earlier, if your family income is very far below 61, you're going to get more money, and that money can be used toward room and board and these other expenses, okay? So it's not like it's just an either or. That's just our shorthand way of helping people understand that there's a lot of support there. Yes? Yes, thank you for mentioning that. So this $3,968 in fees, about, I want to say like $1,200, $1,000 or $1,200 is student health insurance. If the student is on their family insurance, their parents' insurance, then we don't charge you for that. We waive that. So that fee number could go down by $1,200 or something like that. But we have a rule that we want every student on our campus to have health insurance. So either you're on your parents' plan or else you're on basically the university plan. But financial aid can be used to pay that. So the Illinois commitment is about 16,000, or if you're over in the engineering program, it's actually more. It's close to 21,000 in support that's promised. Okay, that's not the end of the story. Remember, I told you earlier that there are other scholarships that you can win. If you win other scholarships, those add on. President's Award Program, Chancellor's Access Grant, we've got all kinds of scholarships, both on campus, and I told you about these other scholarship sources. If you're a student and you're eligible for Illinois commitment, we're promising you this money out of the box, okay? And if you win other scholarships from any other source, they can be used to cover these other costs. So that's our Illinois commitment program. And 1 out of every three, if you're Urbana-Champaign, 1 out of every 3 Illinois resident students we have, so don't count international students because they have to pay full price. 1 out of 3 Illinois residents qualifies for this program. 1 out of 3. Yes?
The 61,000, is that net or gross?
61,000 is net. AGI, adjusted. No, AGI. Let me check on that and get back to you. I'm not sure. Do the programs make a difference from transfer students? What do you mean by that?
Okay, so of course this would be like you would cover tuition fees for students that come in as like freshmen. So like if if I did like 2 years of college and I'm coming from a different college,
Yes.
this program.
Yes. So this program, so students who are starting this coming fall, and then of course years after, because we plan to keep doing this, are eligible for this program whether they're coming in as freshmen or they're coming in as a transfer student. So one of the very valuable paths, and this is something that we absolutely endorse, and we take, at Illinois, we take well over 1,000 students each year who came from community colleges. So you could start at community college. One of the ways to save money for college, no doubt about it, if you can take 2 years at community college where tuition is a lot lower and you can live at home, you get your associate's degree at the community college, those credits then transfer to any four-year school, not just Urbana-Champaign, any four-year school, and then 2 more years you can earn your degree at that school. That's a way to save money, and you are still eligible for this program. Yes? Yes. So, and part of the reason, so this is one of the things we're doing, and there are 2 ways to look at it. One is, wow, that's really great that you can get tuition and fees covered. You just know, you may know it right now. Say, okay, my income's $52,000, so my kid's eligible. That's great. So it helps you with planning. The other way to look at it is, well, wait a second, that's only about half. What about the other half? And yes, there are other sources of scholarships, financial aid, and then there are also loans that you can take. Now, I wouldn't, I hope it's not all loans. Let's put it that way. In fact, it probably wouldn't be or shouldn't be, quite honestly, because that would then add up to probably $60,000 in loans by the time you graduate. That's on the high side of what I like to see folks have. I feel like $20,000 to $30,000 in loans is something that's manageable and can be paid off. Of course, individual mileage varies. But part of the reason I wanted to show you this is not just to advertise Illinois. A lot of schools have programs like this, or they have variations on programs like this. I'll give you an example. If you go to the Illinois State webpage, if anybody in this room is interested in being a teacher in the future, Illinois State is a great option. I mean, we're a great option too, but Illinois State's a great option. And you go to the Illinois State webpage, you will see that they have programs like this. It's called something else, and the details might be a little bit different. But the point is that it's a pretty big investment, but it's not completely unique. It's not like Illinois is the only school doing it. Okay? There's a new program from the state. Representative Evans and others supported a program that's called Aim High, which is state scholarship money. That's merit scholarship money. This year we're going to award well over $1 million in merit money through the Aim High program. So I don't want you to think if you get Illinois Commitment that you can't get other money, because you absolutely can. And in fact, many students do. We already know that. Many students who are receiving Illinois Commitment are getting additional scholarships and awards, and they're going to use that to pay for some of these other costs.
The College of DuPage has a program I think you can speak to. The College of DuPage has a program where if you get their AA in their engineering program, there's automatic acceptance into UIC Urbana. Is there any money attached to that as well as the acceptance?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. So there are some what we call guaranteed admission programs from community colleges. So for example, the College of DuPage is one. My recollection is there are 7 different community colleges that have a guaranteed admission program with Urbana-Champaign. I know Wilbur Wright is one of them. Actually, all the city colleges, actually. You enroll in this program, and after your 2 years of community college, if you meet some benchmarks, if your GPA is above some cutoff, you're guaranteed admission to Urbana. And so it's called we call it the Pathways program. And so it's great. It's a great way to, for example, get into engineering or get into other high-demand disciplines, for sure, and also save money. The question was, is there any money associated with that? it varies based on the program. So I happen to know that Wilbur Wright Community College just got a big grant from the National Science Foundation to provide some scholarships for their Pathways program to help students in that.
So on the front end to get them through Wilbur Wright, or on the back end?
Back end, on the back end. And the reason for that is the back end is the expensive side. You know, if you're in the, and you folks probably know this better than I do, if you're in Chicago and you meet the criteria for city colleges, what's it called, the STARS program?
STARS program,
yeah. So usually the front end is much less expensive. So the money for the back end, which is the last 2 years, which is this money, that's where that comes in. But it's not, so for example, it's not for everyone, so you have to go program by program. But of course, here's the thing. You know, I told you earlier I'm not here to recruit for Illinois, and so I'm not trying to sell you Illinois. There are people who their job is to recruit for all these different schools, and they're going to be telling you about these programs. They're going to be telling you about money that's available in their unique program. I showed you this one mostly, it's something we're proud of, it's something we're excited about, but also to give you it as an example of something that we do. We also have other programs. I was actually just at the Illinois Promise Banquet last night. I'm going to skip over this. I think I already said this, so I'm just going to skip this because I don't want to take your whole morning up. And I want to make sure you have time to ask more questions. Okay. We have a program called Illinois Promise, which is a program that is for students who have a $0 estimated family contribution. And this is kind of a rough estimate. If you're in a family of 4, that probably means the family income is about $30,000 a year, something like that. Illinois Promise students actually receive full cost of attendance. So that scholarship is worth, it's not quite the full $31,000 because a little bit of that money comes from work study, so you have to work a little bit and take out a small loan. But what I'm telling you is that we have programs that will pay almost all of it, and if you get multiple scholarships, you can pay all of that cost. Now, so we want to get the cost manageable. If we can get it to 0, great, but we want to get it manageable. And the point is there are lots of programs out there to help make that happen. Are there other questions I can answer? Let me just give you my bottom line. And this is true, again, of all schools. Number 1, pay attention to the deadlines. And think about, obviously think about a little bit about where you want to go, what you want to do, what opportunities there might be. Pay attention to the deadlines. Put your time and effort into your applications. Make sure that those applications reflect who you are. One thing I'm sure we can all agree on is that college is expensive. There is absolutely no doubt about it. It is expensive. Folks are working very hard to try to make it more manageable. I told you a little bit about what we're doing. Other folks are doing things. Our state legislators are doing good things, trying to bring that cost down. But it's a kind of a complicated and messy system, so it's not so easy to navigate. And that's why I want to make sure that you are empowered to either pick up the phone or send an email message, and this is to whatever school you're thinking about, and ask them these questions about what sources of aid do you have? I have a question about the FAFSA form. Will you please help me? Because the answer will be yes. That's what they do. That's their job. That's what they do. Because they want you to come to their school, and they want you to be successful. And so those are the important messages I have for you today, and I'm happy to answer other questions that you have. I said I would give my contact information. Let me do that real quick. I thought I had a slide with it, but you can always do this. Oops.
Thank you all for being here before you leave. I know I just want to give this information. Please share the information you have here. And not stopping. We need more students at the University of Illinois and all our universities from our community. Everybody's situation is a little different, so keep the information. Stay in contact with my office. Stay in contact with the admissions office that you have. There's other organizations that can help you navigate. So this is the beginning. But let's please share this information. Don't take this home and just put it to the side. Put it on social media and share it with your network. So could you give them a round of applause?
Two things real quick. Number one, thank you so much, Representative Evans, for putting this event on. I will stay and talk to you and answer your questions as long as you've got questions. But I really appreciate your time, and feel free to follow up. I'm going to put the phone number up there. If you want to contact me, feel free to reach out. But I really appreciate your time, and I wish you all the very best. Students, it's so great to talk to some of you. You just have such great opportunities and tremendous potential. So best wishes to all of you, and thanks again for coming today.
Thank you all.